We are also glad to have Eddy and Carol Aliff with us tonight. And Brother Aliff, of course, is with the Virginia Assembly of Independent Baptists. And that group has been instrumental in guarding and acting as a watchdog for our religious liberty here in Virginia for I don't know how many years, but it's been many, and they've done an outstanding job. And Brother Aliff just finished the 2019 session there with the legislature in Richmond, and he can give us a report of that, and then he's going to preach for us as well. And one other thing too that I asked him, this is why I asked him to come, but in talking with him out in the vestibule, we'd talked earlier a few months ago about this matter of incorporation. And the church is doing that in the day in which we live. And I think it was 1992, 91, the court case took place. And prior to that, churches were not allowed to incorporate in Virginia. And there's pros and cons. It's been debated back and forth on that for decades, really. And I asked Brother Aliff if he'd mind just mentioning, what he sees in this matter briefly for us tonight, and I appreciate him being here. Brother Aliff, God bless you, and we appreciate all the work that you do. God bless you.
Thank you, and I again want to say thank you for this church being a faithful supporter of the ministry of VAIB. VAIB has been around a while, and I'm trying to see if there's anything on the screen yet. We can go ahead with the PowerPoint if we can. I've got a PowerPoint because I would like to make sure that everybody here is on the same page. And so I would like to go through the basics of VAIB. Sometimes I'll say something about VAIB to people and they'll look at me and deer in the headlights. I have no idea what you do or what you're for or anything else. What's even funnier is when you get a phone call from a pastor from a church that supports VAIB, but it's a new pastor and he's from out of state. That even makes it more interesting because he says, "Hi, I'm calling because I see you're on our missions list, and what in the world do you guys do?" Good question. And there's nothing wrong with asking that question. I think any pastor would want to. Now, I know that look like a blank screen up there, but if I press enough buttons, things are going to come up. And I apologize, but VAIB, since 1977, we've been working on issues with regards to churches. In the beginning, there were a couple of things that some pastors saw a need. In fact, Dr. John Halsey was pastoring at Great Hope Baptist Church, and he could see some things on the horizon, and I believe other pastors could too. And so he felt like, we need to look at this. We need to figure out what can we do. And the thing is, what we can do and what we should do depends upon what people are willing to do. And so that's why I'm thankful. But when I came on board in 2010 as the executive director, Dr. Knapp had been on officially since 1985, but he had actually since 1980 through 1985 been doing some part-time work because he was a staff member for Dr. John Halsey, and Dr. John Halsey couldn't always get down to the Capitol. And so Jack was willing to do that. So I'm going to turn around. My wife and I, I've worked in Christian school ministry since 1976 until 2009 when I resigned from Landmark Christian School and Landmark Baptist Church, and my wife as well. Now, my wife is a registered nurse, but she also has helped me with this ministry as a part-time basis, and she's been in the Christian schools as well, and I'm thankful for her. Carol, if you'll go ahead and stand so people will see that you are actually with me. And I'm so thankful for my wife and the help that she offers. It's not a mandate that the wife of the executive director do what she does, but it sure makes life easier, and I do appreciate that. Also, just to make mention, I'll wait till I get to that other part. Now, not only is my wife and I working, but VAIB, myself, I realized I can't get to churches fast enough. In general, I get to about 50 to 60 churches a year because I usually am out 30 weekends of the year. Once in a while, I'll get a Wednesday. In fact, I've got a Wednesday service this week. But Wednesdays are very rare, usually because pastors want me to come when there's more people in the auditorium. So since then, after I was on board for probably 5 years, I realized I just can't get to the churches. There's about 460 churches on our list. But let me tell you some sad news. And I was talking with Pastor about some things, and I didn't say anything about this, and maybe the last time I was here, which was 2012, I think. I'm not positive, but it's been a while. Confirm with me there, Secretary. She's got the record there in front of her. But since that time, I've kept track of the churches through the years. On average, is that right? 16? Okay, so I was here earlier, and then 2016. But on average, 2 independent Baptist churches close every year in the state of Virginia. That's just the state of Virginia now, on average. Because I found some that had been closed several years or whatever, and this is a challenge because independent Baptist churches are not opening at a rate to supplant that. That could be a problem. And then I needed to get in churches in order to solidify my base insofar as support. But with the economic downturn, and again, I probably mentioned this in 2016, we lost 30 churches. That's a lot of churches to lose. And it did impact us financially. And to date, while the last 3 years, we have maintained our financial base, and it has not gone down. We did hit a low back in about 2013, 14. And then we saw some up and down. But I'm thankful that we've solidified. But not only do churches close, but churches also drop support. Because churches are facing financial stress and financial struggles. That's just the facts. And because of that, on average, we lose 2 churches a year for support. And we usually have 2 churches which decrease support. Which means what? I've got to replace those churches. I just couldn't get to them fast enough in order to replace. And so Joe and Marty have come on, and they are like, they're contractors. They're not staff of VAIB, but they're like contractors. And they go out and visit churches as they have opportunity. He is a state trooper, has a regular job. In fact, the first time he got to be in a church was when he came visiting with me to this church. And I'm thankful for that because it helped him to see what VAIB was about insofar as this area. Now, this ministry began using the mission statement right there, which was developed by the original pastors. And that mission statement says, we need to keep you informed. More importantly, I need to keep the pastor informed. I am responsible to pastors, and that's why we seek support from churches. But also because of technologies, we have the availability for you to be involved in VAIB. Therefore, I strongly encourage you, if you've not signed up for our emails, and a lady said something to me, and praise God when people say something to me, because that means they're getting their emails or paying attention to what's going on. Do you know what the average open rate is for emails that go out from individuals, groups like me? 30%. 30%. So only 30% care enough to open the email that I send out. Or you're not getting the email. And that's another problem. If you're not getting an email, please go to our website. Sign up, vaib.org. Go and sign up. Or go out to our table. Go to and get the sign up form. Sign up for VAIB. You can use the ink pen out there, and you can keep the ink pen. Guaranteed to work at least one more time after you fill out this card. You know how ink pens are, right? But please print carefully. Only if you have an email address, because we don't send out regular mail to folks. We need a quick turnaround on issues, and this is the best way to do it. And of course, we want to keep the pastors informed. You want information about my wife and I, you want to see about our ministry and things like that, pick up a prayer card. We really appreciate it because it is important. It is important that you pray for your missionaries. Believe me, I know we're an unusual ministry. We don't start churches. We work to make sure churches like this can stay open. Because the challenges are out there. And like you said, I want to talk about the incorporation issue. But we also have a brochure. If you're in question about how you should vote, I don't think we have a problem here at this church with that. But if you have any questions about the fact that you ought to be praying and seeking God's face about how you should vote, please pick up one of these, using your vote the way God would want you to use it. And we don't promote party. We are nonpartisan. I don't care about party. I care about principles. And the principles of this book is what we want to focus on, and the people who support the principles of this book. And we've had some good people over the years. But I can't say that all of them are absolutely with us on all things, even though they may have voted the right way. But challenges have come up. We're seeing people, again, retire, not run for re-election. Some have been around a long time. But are we going to have the right people in place? And we'll talk a little bit about that. If you want to get an overview, you can pick up our brochure. It gives you a broad overview of the ministry of VAIB. And there's also, is the paper out on the issues? There's also a paper talks about the two main issues that brought VAIB into being. In the beginning, we just had two main issues we were working on. Today, I work on over 10 issues. There's a lot of issues for one person to work on at the General Assembly. But the fact is that we want to keep you informed on things of a critical nature. And then we want you to help out. But we're concerned about the benefits that are expressed to everybody, not just you as a church, not just to Independent Baptists, but we are concerned about what's in the best interest of the Commonwealth overall. We do three main things. We work to strengthen, educate, and involve. Strengthen, educate, and involve. I'm going to hopefully see if the video is going to work on the next screen. It'll give you a brief overview, 3.5 minutes, show you the state capitol as we present the ministry of VAIB. There we go.
In Virginia, we value our families, our work, and our freedoms. We get up early and we stay up late. We work hard in the cities and in the fields. We honor our military and their commitment to protecting us. We love our church family. We love the preaching, the prayer meetings, and the potlucks. While we're busy supporting our fellow man, reaching out to our communities, and living our lives, who watches over our religious freedoms? Who makes sure we have a voice with the legislators in Richmond? The Virginia Assembly of Independent Baptists is our voice for Christian liberties.
In order to accomplish our work, we do three things. We strengthen, educate, and involve. We strengthen our position by being informed on the issues, and then by building relationships with the legislators and other government officials. We educate by going to churches and providing them information through our monthly update letters. And finally, we involve our people in the issues by first of all letting them know what's going on, and then giving them opportunity to respond to our legislators, letting them know their concerns so that we can gain their support on the issues.
We are very thankful for the ministry of the Virginia Assembly of Independent Baptists. It has been a great help to me personally as a pastor, as well as to our church. I'll also say it's very comforting and encouraging to know that we have Eddy Aliff there in the Virginia Assembly as a watchdog to ensure that our freedoms are not being taken from us.
So one of the things that I appreciate as a conservative legislator who reviews thousands of bills that come before the General Assembly each session is to have the VAIB in the General Assembly educating, informing, and communicating with me as a legislator about important issues in regards specifically to religious liberties. And I know that we've had many bills brought to our attention, specifically by Pastor Aliff, that were not on our radar because things are flying fast and furious during the General Assembly session. So it's good to have his presence there, alerting us and bringing to our attention issues that affect religious liberty, and make sure that we have that when we go into session to vote.
VAIB, your voice for Christian liberties. Our forefathers gave us an opportunity to speak in government. Without your voice, we will not be a success. Help the VAIB today.
As you work, preach, and pray, the Virginia Assembly of Independent Baptists is your voice for Christian liberties. Contact us to find out how we can work together.
Here we go. I hope that was as professional as we intended for it to be. That's a tool that we try to use and get into the hands of non-supporting churches so they'll understand in a quick format what we're about. But we did the best we could to make that professional. So we hired a professional company in order to make that happen. We're very thankful, I think, for the results. But as I said, we work to strengthen. We build relationships with legislators. That's why I'm at the General Assembly most every day that the General Assembly is meeting, so I can keep those relationships going. We work on legislation, so I have to look over the bills. Anybody have any idea how many bills normally come in a year? Any guesses? 2,000. 2,000. Can I go higher? Can I go higher? How many? 50,000. Is that what you said? 50 or 15? 50. 50,000 is too much. That might be Washington, D.C., but no. Not that many. I would never get any work done. Praise God we don't have that many. They're generally 3,000. Generally 3,000. Fortunately, this year it was actually only about 2,700. So not nearly as many. But the things that we're dealing with are still critical and important. If you pay attention to the news, you might have seen us on national news as well. Not only because of bills, or a particular bill, in dealing with the fact that they wanted to expand abortion through the 9th month, through the time that the mother was going to even give birth, but also the fact of the problems for our governor, lieutenant governor, attorney general. Can I tell you, I couldn't have written a better script. They did it all by themselves. It happens. But do you think that's going to make a change? Only if people go out to vote and vote the way they should. That's the only way it's going to make a change. Well, I work on bills, so I'm busy usually with about 200 bills. I usually lobby on about 100 to 120 bills, which was true for this year. I work by speaking in the committees and speaking directly to the legislators and trying to get you as well through another method. And I'll talk about that in a moment. But we send out our monthly update letters. If you sign up for our emails, I promise you I am not going to send you an email every day. I don't have time. I won't send you an email every week, except during the General Assembly. At the end of each week, I would send an update. What's going on? What are the main bills? These types of things. Otherwise, I'm only going to alert you when there's a true problem. But we send out the monthly letters, and we send it out by regular mail to the churches, and then also through the email. We have conferences, our annual meeting, our yearly meeting. Still have our annual meeting there in Richmond. We've been staying at Landmark for simplicity's sake. It's just been easier. That's my home church. My pastor's been very gracious at having us come. But it's open for everybody. And this next conference we're going to have a special afternoon, a Friday afternoon of taking you to the Capitol and letting you go through a Capitol tour. I believe it would be a huge benefit. We have a historic Capitol of great importance. And not only that, but what you can learn, I think will help you appreciate better the Capitol of Virginia. We have church meetings like this. We have our website, vaib.org. Again, please go there. Some useful information, but again, it's essentially there just as an information tool. And also, I'm on Facebook, but just to give you information. Again, not there to argue, not there to promote unusual things, but we do promote news articles, newsworthy items. Sometimes I will write an item. Sometimes I have somebody else that will be writing things. But please pay attention. Go to our Facebook page, Virginia Assembly of Independent Baptists, for that. So you can be involved. As I said, you can sign up, and then you can go on our website and you can sign up. Either way, works for me. Just print carefully so we can make sure we get it right. And then if we have an issue, I can send out a Capitol alert. I think I sent out 1 or 2 Capitol alerts this year. That's about average. I don't usually send them out unless I need to. If I know we've got everything in hand, I'm not going to agitate you to contact your legislators. If I know we've got the votes, I'm not going to say anything. But I was holding back because there were some very important areas that actually the bills never got heard in committee. It's an unusual tactic, an unusual procedure, but the chairman of a committee has a huge amount of authority, and he chose not to hear those bills on sexual orientation and gender identity. We don't believe that they deserve any more special protections than we do, and that's why we don't want to see those bills in place. What can you do to help? You can vote. Not only that, but you can also run for office. And you say, oh, I don't want to run for office. Then how are we going to get the right kind of people in office? Answer me that. I don't know what to do. People say, why don't I run? Well, I can't run for office and be a lobbyist, which is what I am. I have a broader ministry with what I do insofar as being an influence on legislators, as the lady said. That's Senator Amanda Chase, great lady, born again. We appreciate that. But you can vote, you can work on campaigns, you can help. Believe me, we've got to get people in place that will have our concerns at heart. You can pray, we appreciate that. And of course you can give, which this church does. And I also throw out, we also take individual donations, but I ask one thing, do not take anything out of what you would normally give to your church and give to VAIB. Your church already supports VAIB. But sometimes people will get, say, tax refunds or something special like that. And if you feel like you would like to give something special, you may have other things that you need to give to, give to here at the church. I'm just saying it's available. And because of that, we've actually have some people that have done that, and it's really helped. Because of the loss of some churches as we go along, it's really helped to buoy us up a little bit as we go along. Now, what can you do insofar as praying? Pray for protection as we travel across the state. Pray for perception as I deal with legislators and legislation. And then pray for my partner, Carol, as she helps me, and my other partners, Joe and Marty Naylor, as they go out. I appreciate them. And then pray for provision, that other churches will get the vision. You see, right now, we have about 200 supporting churches, 187 regular supporting churches like you that give regularly, that I can depend on. And then I have those other churches which may give. Sometimes I have to remind them, you know, you gave last year. Some just give on a yearly basis, and that's fine. But every year we seem like we're getting ahead, we lose churches. This last year was probably the hardest year I've seen in a while. We actually lost 5 churches last year. And most every time it's because of financial stress. But we also replaced it with 5 churches. The thing is, though, it's not usually one for one. Churches support at different levels. But we're thankful that we've been able to maintain our stability. Now let me mention also that we have our yearly meeting, again at Landmark, September 26 and 27. I want to encourage you to come. No charge. We don't charge for that. We do take an offering, and that really helps to pay for the expenses of that. But you can come and you can learn a lot there. We've been having Tim Barton from Wall Builders come give us some religious heritage, and he's been a real blessing. But also insofar as the issues, like your pastor had mentioned, with regards to incorporation, there was a time, as he said, when churches could not incorporate in Virginia, and there was a reason for that. They wrote it into the Constitution. But then, Jerry Falwell and their ministry, they said, we have issues with that because of the complexity of our ministry. We need to incorporate to have a larger umbrella to protect all these ministries. And I understand that. Most churches don't have that, but some do. And so he sued and got it changed. So now churches can incorporate. And sad to say, but over the years since that time, we have seen in the legal area that it is seemingly better if churches incorporate. Especially if you do any travel outside the state of Virginia. If you ever take a bus, whether it be a youth camp or anything else, if you have a church bus going outside, we've heard of some instances where some terrible accidents occurred and the churches got hurt financially because they were not protected as an incorporated entity. That's problematic. Fortunately, we have partnered with NCLL, National Center for Life and Liberty, David Gibbs III, who is going to do legal seminars for us, and I know your pastor is aware of this, but we're going to do 5 legal seminars, and VAIB is now having a legal arm as a part of our ministry. Because I'm not a lawyer, and I can't give legal advice, but having a lawyer on staff, you might say, on hand, makes our ministry have a little bit step higher. You see, because it's very typical for many of the lobbyists out there that they are lawyers. In fact, the 2 other ministries, Family Foundation and Catholic Conference, both have lawyers on staff that do their lobbying. Now, do you have to have a law degree to lobby? No. But there are some benefits to it insofar as the issues that we're dealing with. But I'm able to do what I do by being a registered lobbyist, by representing you. My experience would be great. But as your pastor was asking me, you know, I'm 65 years old. How much longer can I do this? It gets stressful. And as I get older, the stress is more daunting than when I was younger. And so there are challenges. And so we're always praying and seeking and asking God for direction on that and finding a successor down the line. Now, I would like to retire at 70 if God will give me that strength and ability to do that. But in the meantime, we're thankful for, again, the support of this. But the need to incorporate, we're finding, is there. I was telling you, Pastor, about a church who actually had their credit card suspended because they are not an incorporated entity. And they were saying, but they're asking me for this information and this information, which, by the way, if you incorporate, it's all there at the SCC, State Corporation Commission. It's all there, and they can look you up and they can see that you are a registered church. We've had entities come out and take over church buildings as if they were a church, but they really weren't trying to be a church. They were trying to do some other things under the auspices of being a church. And this has been problematic, and that's why, not that they want to stop us from doing what we're doing, but they want to make sure that actual churches are out there doing what they're doing. And so the same thing is true with VAIB. I wear a 501c3, so we're a little bit different. We're not a church entity. And so I have other obligations beyond that insofar as tax filings and things like that with the IRS and with the state. But it does help to be incorporated, and I believe David Gibbs III would be able to give, again, more advice with regards to that. So I would commend you on that, and I know some churches that have incorporated. In fact, many other mainline denominations, they've always incorporated since they've had the ability. And there have been great protections and benefits because of that. You think that answers everything, Pastor? Okay. If you have any questions, please see me after. Right now, if you turn your Bibles to Nehemiah, and I know we don't have a lot of time left, but I want to challenge you with something, because I know that there are challenges every one of us faces in our lives. I don't care. Might want to kill it. I don't care what the ministry or job that you do. We all face challenges in life. And in reality, the work that I've been doing at the General Assembly, I have, in a sense, really enjoyed. I believe if God calls you to a ministry, it's going to be something you enjoy. And I've enjoyed getting to meet the people. And your pastor was asking me about the local representative here, Gordon Helsel. Gordon Helsel gives a testimony of being saved. Is concerned about issues. And I remember when he first came in and I came to visit him and was telling him about the fact that who I was and what I represented. And he said, come in my office and sit down. Now, usually when a legislator wants you to come in their office, I said, well, I don't want to, you got people out here waiting. He said, I don't care. You come in here, sit down. I have some questions for you. And he explained to me that he had not been saved that long, but he was really thankful. And Gordon wrote a book. He was in Vietnam, nearly died. I mean, it was just a miracle that he was saved. And he felt like it was God preparing him for something special. And so he has served, but it's been a great stress because he stands for conservative values. And he explained that to me. He said, look, if you ever have a bill or if you see I'm voting the wrong way, he says, you tell me. I want to know because I need help because I haven't been saved that long. Now, folks, there's nothing better than hearing somebody say something about being saved and needing help. And that's the benefit of lobbyists. We are there as a useful tool. But one thing I find to be true, and I found this as a teacher of 33 years, Christian school teacher, your voice matters. Your voice matters. How you talk to people, how you respond to people matters. Because it's sometimes not what you say, but it's how you say what you say. Okay? Anyway, I won't go too far in that. But the fact is that I believe that Nehemiah, in his ability, in his desire to help Israel and desire to go back and rebuild the city, as he approached the king that he served, Artaxerxes, he had no real political standing. I have no political standing. I'm not an elected official. I'm a lobbyist. And elected officials have a vote up there. I don't. They have a responsibility, though, to their constituents. Nehemiah wanted to help the people of God back in Jerusalem. And he was trying to figure out what he could do, and God blessed him with an opportunity. But as he came before the king, I believe he exemplifies what I think are four crucial voices in how we will speak to people on important issues. And I think anytime we speak, we should be aware of that. We should be careful about that. You see, Nehemiah, as not having any political standing, as he came before King Artaxerxes in chapter 2, when Nehemiah was asked by the king about why he was so sad. The king could tell that he was emotionally distraught over something. He had worked for the king many years. But see, Nehemiah couldn't just, they weren't buds. You understand? They weren't buds. I see Governor Northam at the Capitol. And he and I have known each other for some years. When he was a senator, I knew him. And he's always been a very kind, mild-mannered person. But he's always believed in abortion through the 9th month, which I was just appalled that a doctor, a pediatric neurologist, would be okay with abortion through the 9th month. But he would always say, well, you know, there's special extenuating circumstances. True, it doesn't happen much, but that's only because we have very strong laws in place. If you give a doctor who is good with abortion, who feels like this woman is in emotional distress and they need to abort that baby even in the 9th month, they'll do it. They will do it. They will murder that baby because that baby has the ability to be alive, to live. It has a viability. Nehemiah realized when he was going to present this issue, and just like when I talked to the governor, I respect the governor because of his position. I'm always kind and respectful to him in these areas. He's brought a lot of the problems on himself lately, and I am so thankful that things are out in the open more than what they have been. But he wanted to do something, and when the king asked him this, and is asking him what's happened, Nehemiah has an opportunity. Can I tell you, though, that when he speaks to the king, I believe that, number one, he speaks with a voice of humble respect. Humble respect. You know, there's nothing wrong with being humble and respectful to somebody. That doesn't mean that you're being, your rights and responsibilities aren't being respected. It's just simply you're showing who's in proper authority here. And that's all he's doing, is he's showing the respect to him. And so in verse 2, he says, verse 3, he explains to him, let the king live forever. That's an important phrase. Shows his respect for the king. And you know, like in England, they always say, God save the queen, God save the king. Because of their position. That's why they're doing it. Not because of any other special reason, but for that. He said, why shouldn't my countenance be sad when the city, the place of my father's sepulchres, lieth waste, and the gates thereof are consumed with fire? See, he's explaining that there's tragic conditions back in Jerusalem. It's been that way for almost 100 years. Nothing's changed. You know, I'm saddened as I'm talking with your pastor. We're seeing a definite decline in Christians being concerned for serving God. In Christians being concerned for being a Christian in society. That's problematic, folks. It's problematic. This book hasn't changed, but I'm afraid that the hearts and minds of these people have changed. And it's a challenge. But Nehemiah, again, he wanted to show his proper respect, and I believed he used a humble voice in responding to the king. I will do the same thing when I'm at the General Assembly. And I go to visit all kinds of legislators for all kinds of reasons. But I always want to show them the proper respect that they deserve. And as a Christian, more importantly, I need to show the love of Christ in what I do in my life. And that's what you and I both need to do as we're showing ourselves to be Christ-like before the world. Secondly, I believe that as he's speaking to the king, because the king then says in verse 4, for what dost thou make request? Now he's opening the door for Nehemiah to ask what he needs the king to do to allow him to help the people of God. Because this is the only way that he can have political standing with the king, is if the king gives him that opportunity, which is what he did. Now what is Nehemiah going to do? He's going to do what any good lobbyist will do. He's going to present the facts that support his case. And that's what I do. I don't need to present the other side's case, okay? That's their responsibility. But sometimes when I'm at the General Assembly and you hear testimony given in committee, it's as if you're hearing two diametrically opposed positions. And sometimes you are. And you think somebody's lying. No. Both sides are giving the facts that they want to give that are necessary to support their position. Now, hopefully, I am never trying to do anything to be dishonest. Whereas I have seen others on the other side, and I've had a couple of run-ins with some legislators that actually lied to me about something, and I went to them and I said, don't ever lie to me. You can do anything you want. Tell me to my face what you believe about something, but don't lie to me about the intent of this bill, because I see what the intent of this bill is, and you lied to me, and I don't appreciate that. Folks, believe me, integrity, truthfulness is the greatest thing you can have at the General Assembly, both by legislators as well as by lobbyists. And so he was presenting to the king his reasons. Reason is important, folks. Reasoning is important. Facts are important. Presenting them logically and in the right tone. Unfortunately, you see things on TV that I don't think are indicative of what I typically face at the General Assembly. At the General Assembly, and my wife has been up there with me some through the years, I don't normally have people yelling at me. You don't normally have people yelling at the people on the committee. You have people coming, giving testimony, answering questions, and that's the other thing, and you can come, by the way, you're welcome to come give testimony on any bill that you feel impassioned about. Just one thing. If you're being impassioned, don't express your passion with your voice. Okay? Stay calm, cool, and collected. Present your reasons properly, respectfully. And that's generally been the case at the General Assembly. There's a few times I have been yelled at, and I have been verbally accosted. It's the rarity, thankfully, but sometimes people are impassioned for things. I learned long ago, don't get married to a bill. I'm married to my wife. That's enough responsibility. Don't get married to, there is no bill out there that is more important than anything else, insofar as being a Christian. Yes, we wanted to get bills passed, and I'm thankful that VAIB was able to get some things done with regards to religious exempt daycares and the sales and use tax. But it's a process. Be respectful when you're dealing with people, and that goes with your day-to-day life. But as Nehemiah got past these two hurdles, by using his voice of humility with the king, by using his voice of reason with the king, and then the king giving him permission to go rebuild the city, Nehemiah had a huge hurdle to get over. And that is to get the people of God in Jerusalem to come on board with the rebuilding of the city. This was a people who were nearly 100 years had been under the thumb of oppression from those who were in control. They just were suffering hugely. And I'm sure they had other people come. You see, now Nehemiah was coming as the governor. And in verse 17 of chapter 2, he comes before the people. He's called them together for a meeting, for a huge citywide meeting, you might say, and explains to them why he's there. And he says, you can see how bad the conditions are here. We need to rebuild this city. I'm sure they had heard that before, but they hadn't heard the next verse. Look at verse 18. Then I told them the hand of my God, which was good upon me, is also the king's words that he had spoken unto me. Now, folks, that was an encouragement. These people had thought God had forgotten them, given up on them. You know, one thing about God, God doesn't give up on us. We give up on ourselves way too easy, maybe. And sometimes people can give up on us. But God had not forgotten. See, Israel had turned its back on God. That's why they were in the situation they were in. And Nehemiah is trying to say, look, God hadn't forgotten you. This is what he did for me before the king Artaxerxes. He's given me authority. He's given me ability to get this job done, but I need your help. Will you get on board? See, he used what I call a voice of encouragement. After teaching students, like I said, for 33 years, you know, it's a lot easier to be encouraging to students than it is to belittle. I've seen teachers through my years who I felt like were very harsh with students. I used to be one of those until I had children. I found out something. It breaks my heart to see people belittle or berate my children when they were coming up. And I realized I had been doing that during the years. I had been too harsh. In spite of how much I love teaching and I love kids, I really didn't understand what it meant to have compassion. And folks, we have to understand that sometimes people just need a voice of encouragement. Amen. A word of encouragement. to lift their hearts and lift their spirits. Your legislators are like that. I know legislators that want to quit, and I'm not sure if Gordon Helsel might be one. I know 2 years ago he didn't want to run, and he reconsidered, and I kept asking him this year, and he said, I still haven't made my mind up. I think Gordon has done an admirable job trying to do the best he can, both for what's the right principles as well as what's right for his constituents. But it's important that we get the right people in place. Because the Bible is clear. When you have the wicked in our rule, when the wicked rule, the people mourn. And there's good reason for it. And then I think there's a fourth voice. As they began to do the rebuilding process in chapter 3, in chapter 2, as they are getting ready to do this building process, they were immediately attacked by the enemy. The enemy mocked them, verbally assaulted them. But even later in the chapters, chapter 4, chapter 6, they even were going to try to attack these people, to kill these people as they were building the wall. They didn't want to see this done. And Nehemiah, I love what Nehemiah did. And if there's a time when we have to draw a line and say, this is it. I'm thankful that the principles that VAIB has stood on are based on this book. And that we've been able to, without apology, to stand on certain positions. I said, we haven't changed our positions. We've always believed one man, one woman. Marriage is between a man and a woman. We've always believed there's a mother, a father, children. Now, I know things change, but we don't believe there's two mothers and two fathers, okay? We don't believe in same-sex marriage. I don't care how much these people love each other. I don't think it's in the best interests of children, best interests of society. And Nehemiah got these people together, and when they were attacked, Nehemiah realized what was going on. And look at verse 20. Look at verse 20, chapter 2, verse 20. And this is what he said to those. There were 3 men who were attacking them verbally and even lying about them, saying, you know, what are you trying to do, rebel against the king? That's a lie, folks. Nehemiah had letters from the king giving him authority to do it. He said, the God of heaven, he will prosper us. Therefore we, his servants, will arise and build. But ye have no position, nor right, nor memorial in Jerusalem. Folks, we got to remember, the lost are just that. Don't expect them to like your church. Don't expect them to support your church. But if you can go out there and show the love of Christ, I believe you can draw them in to be saved and have them become a part of this important ministry. But we have to be careful with the voices we use. We have to be careful that we are properly approaching people and showing the love of Christ through what we say and how we say it. Amen. Thank you again for your faithful support in VAIB. I appreciate all that you've done, and I hope that if there's anything that I can do insofar as being a help for this ministry, I'm always here, but more importantly, if you as an individual, you have a question about something, please send me an email. I will reply eventually. Okay? I will reply eventually. I will get back to you and let you know. So please continue to be faithful. Don't look around and say, oh, God's forgotten us. God hasn't forgotten us. People may forget God, but God will never forget his own.